In this episode, I'll share how season 3 of White Lotus can help us heal, grow, and step into the person we're becoming. Hey there, it's Michael. Welcome to Whole Again, a show about helping survivors of physical injury and trauma reclaim their strength and resilience through the wisdom of Kintsugi. And today, we'll step into a little pop culture. We'll examine how season 3 of White Lotus can help us heal and step into the person we're becoming. But before we get there, I want to say thank you. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being a fellow survivor. I know this journey you're on isn't easy. It's not like you're on some fancy vacation like the people from White Lotus. Am I right? Healing is difficult. Some days are good, other days are really hard. There are ups and downs, there are headwinds and crosswinds, but still, you're sticking it out. You're enduring. So I want to say, you've got this, and I've got you. We might not have all the answers, but together we can figure it out. We can continue to pedal forward as we try to put a beautiful ripple into the world. So again, thank you for being here. Now, let's dive into White Lotus. I'm a big believer that we can look across pop culture, today's zeitgeist, and pull in things that can help us heal and grow, become more resilient. And White Lotus, and season 3 in particular, has a lot of great lessons and some wonderful Buddhist underpinnings that tie back into mindfulness that I believe can help us as we move forward. First of all, let's start with the name White Lotus. One of my favorite quotes is from Thich Nhat Hanh. He is not from Thailand. He is a monk, though. And the quote is, "No mud, no lotus," meaning that we have to go through the muddy moments in life to blossom as a beautiful lotus flower. So we'll start there. So whatever you happen to be going through, that's the mud, that's the dark and the dank of the pond. But soon we can blossom on the lily pad like that beautiful lotus flower. Now, if you're not familiar with White Lotus, and I know not everyone watches the show or has access to it, but White Lotus is the name of the resort. In real life, it's a 4 seasons resort. So it's a pretty fancy pants kind of place. You got to have some money in order to go there. Season 1 was in Maui, season 2 in Sicily, and season 3 in Thailand. And on the surface, you might think this show is about the ultra-rich, the 1%ers that can afford a vacation like this. And there is some first world ultra-rich problems that they deal with. But underneath it all, underneath all the wealth, there is something that's quite special. It's our shared humanity. Regardless of how much money we have, we all share some of these common struggles, these common challenges. So what season 3 does, I think more so than season 1 and season 2, is that it speaks to our shared humanity, concepts that we all experience, regardless of how much money we have. And we witness the guests at the resort dance with these concepts, as well as those working at the resort that don't have nearly the wealth the guests do, which underscores that regardless of our status, our power, our wealth, we all have many experiences that we all share. We're all connected in this way. And the 3 that I want to illustrate today are our relationship with identity, our relationship with pain, and our desire for resolution, or the dichotomy of control, which I spoke about in an earlier episode this month in April, that is pulled from Stoicism. And all 3 concepts can help us navigate our healing journey. So if you're ready, let's dive in. And I promise no spoilers. I'm going to keep this at a high level, and I encourage you to watch the show and let me know your takeaways on how the show can help you continue to pedal forward. Okay, let's start here with the concept of identity as a prison. Many of the guests we meet at White Lotus, as well as some of the workers, are clinging to an identity desperately. The person they think they are, all around the story they tell themselves about themselves. It could be the identity as the rich dad, the college student trying to find her way, the high school friends that believe they'll never change, the older guy who sees himself as a victim. These identities are like prisons, and they've thrown away the key. They might look like all that in a bag of chips on the outside, but deep within, they're not happy. They feel trapped. They're challenged to write a new script. And I think this can be common for all of us. I know I went through it in the early phases of my recovery. I wondered who I would be if I couldn't be who I was. So we wrestle with this as we go through injury or illness or trauma. And you see the people at White Lotus going through it as well. Sometimes when we don't know who we'll become, we try to go back to the old version of who we are. It's more comfortable that way. People around us expect us not to change. But often that old version of ourselves hasn't been serving ourselves all that well. And that backpack our old version carries is quite heavy from all the rocks that they put into it over the years. Or we try to step into this inauthentic, perfect version of who we think we should be. And that never ends well. Real healing, real happiness, the happiness that comes from within, well, that type of happiness is an inside-out kind of job. It invites us to stop performing and simply be. Within Buddhism, within the study of mindfulness, we learn that everything is impermanent. This moment too shall pass. And that includes our identity. Our identities change over time based on what we experience. And when we try to cling to them, try to control them, then that leads to suffering. And when we're unhappy with that identity, we pile on to the suffering. And the ego digs its claws into that identity. It doesn't want to let it go and proclaims, this is who I am. But a more graceful path allows us to see what will arise, what will come up naturally. To trust ourselves even as we go through this healing journey, that we trust that our new identity will emerge. And we can rewrite our script at any time we desire. Lesson 1B in White Lotus is this. Money can certainly allow us to have really special experiences and can make life easier, no doubt about it. But as the old saying goes, money does not buy happiness. So let's get to number 2. What's common, again, with the guests and those that work there is that they can't outrun pain. None of us can, especially you and me, based on what we've been through. Pain isn't necessarily life, as Buddha said, or one of my favorite characters from one of my favorite movies, The Princess Bride, Wesley said to Princess Buttercup, life is pain, but rather I see it this way. And I think this is a fair translation to what Buddha was trying to say. In life, there will be suffering. In life, there will be disappointment. In life, there will be pain. Life is not pain. But in life, we will have our challenges, and we can't outrun the pain. But I should say this, we'll still try to outrun it, even if we know better. And we do so in a lot of different ways. I've done it. Maybe you've done it. We try to find something that will take the pain away, but it's simply temporary. It's only a mask. The monk in White Lotus shares with Tim, the dad, in a moment when Tim is vulnerable, I think he's medicated, and says, people come here and they try to outrun the pain. They try to run towards pleasure. But when they get to pleasure, as the monk says, they find more pain because they never go within. They never go to the source or upstream or however you want to look at it to really deal with what's causing the pain. Everything else is simply a mask that works on a temporary basis, and then the pain comes back. But the way to deal with pain is to run toward it, not run from it. As we run toward it and we sit with it with compassion, then the power of the pain starts to diminish. Until we do this, until we allow the pain to be, it will continue to follow us, regardless of how many fancy vacations we take, regardless of all the different special places that we meditate. I believe we can practice mindfulness and should practice mindfulness wherever we might be. Yes, in Thailand, if we're fortunate enough to go there, but also in your backyard or at the mall or at work or in traffic. But most importantly, how we experience pain is determined by whether or not we try to outrun it or if we're willing and courageous enough to run toward it, to allow it to be and meet it with compassion so it takes some of the power away from the pain. So that's lesson 2. And here's lesson 3. It's the illusion of resolution. We love a good Hollywood story that gets wrapped up in a bow, don't we? But when season 3 ends, again, no spoilers, there's really no resolution. Yes, maybe for some characters, again, I'm not going to name any names, but there's a lot that's just unresolved. And maybe that's the biggest lesson out of all of this. Because healing, life as we live it, isn't about neat conclusions. Life is rarely linear. Certainly, healing isn't linear. And it's almost never clean. Oh, we want it to be. We want it to be easy, but it's never that way. And I think we want resolution because it provides us a sense of control. We like closure. When people ask us, hey, are you back to normal? They want that resolution. Whatever normal happens to look like, I still don't know how to answer that. It's natural to want things to be finished, but healing, life, most of our stories, they don't give us that gift of pure closure. Sometimes all we get is the opportunity to be vulnerable and courageous and sit with what is unresolved. In Buddhist thought, resolution isn't the goal. Liberation or awakening is. It's about being comfortable not knowing, or allowing things to go, or at least let them be. So we no longer feel like we have the need to fix things, to understand or solve things, to make it certain. Instead, what we can hope for is to simply sit beside the pain that we're experiencing without needing to explain it away. It's about coming to some level of acceptance, some level of truth, that some wounds never fully close, but we learn to live with them anyway. And that can help us feel whole again. So we give up this notion that we want resolution in everything, and we allow things to be. And that might be one of the biggest lessons of all from season 3 of White Lotus. Thanks again for being here and listening and being a member of our community here of survivors on Whole Again. I appreciate you. I'm glad you're here. In this episode, we talked about season 3 of White Lotus and some of the lessons you can take away and apply them to your own healing journey. Like how identity can be a prison and the power you have to rewrite your story any day you choose. We also talked about how you can't outrun pain and you can find happiness from the inside out. And finally, the importance of knowing that resolution is an illusion, that sometimes we just have to let things be and sit with what is. And that may be the most graceful pathway forward, so we can put a beautiful ripple into the world together. Again, thanks for being here. I appreciate you. And if you wish to learn more about creating beautiful ripples and how to prevent a bad moment from turning into a bad day, please visit my website, michaelobrienshift.com, and sign up for my newsletter called The Ripple Effect. And join us each Monday, Wednesday, and Friday here at Whole Again and discover how you can heal, grow, and become more resilient. And celebrate our scars as golden symbols of strength and resilience. Until then, remember, you can always come back to your breath. You've got this, and we've got you.